tonight's meeting of the Merrimack Planning Board. As usual, I'd like to make sure anybody that chooses to speak, make sure that your microphones are turned on and to speak clearly into them. Any members of the public that wish to speak also, please first introduce yourself, tell us your name and address, and then you can give us what you have. The next scheduled meeting for the Merrimack Planning Board is January 3rd, 2023, here in this room at 6:30. Next on the agenda, we have the Planning and Zoning Administrators Report.
Before we get to that, could you seat Nelson?
That
and
would
Maureen?
help, huh? I always skip that. I even wrote it down for you this time, Robert. Maureen, I'm going to put you in a position substituting Lynn, Ms. Christensen, and Nelson, I'm going to put you in for Bob Best. There you go, Robert. Now what do you have for us on the report?
Thank you. So the only report item I have this evening is to introduce our new assistant planner, Colleen Olson, seated next to me here. She will be attending the next several months worth of meetings alongside me as Tim just kind of steps back. Tim will be here January 3rd, but he'll be stepping back to do budget season. So just wanted to introduce Colleen.
Okay. Colleen, it's very nice to have you. Welcome.
We'll be jumping.
Tonight should be relatively simple from what it looked like to begin with. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The items that we have on the consent agenda tonight, I'll just list them, are the regional impact determinations, the extension request from L&W Supply Site Plan, Level Acres Phase 2 and 3 roadway infrastructure bond reduction request, and Chestnut Hill Phase 1 roadway acceptance recommendation and roadway infrastructure bond estimates and reduction requests of phases 1, 2, and 3. Board members, as you know, this is relatively new to us, yes, but these are all in the consent agenda, so unless anybody wants to discuss any items separately.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask a question.
Yes.
And I think I know the answer, but I wanted it to be in the record that there was a problem with a sewer sag out there leading to this development. I think it was on Madeline Bennett, and that I think has been fixed as part of this.
Yes.
And I just wanted that for the record.
I believe so. Just now that the question is asked, Robert, can you speak to that, please?
It's correct. If the issue is taken, there is no issue anymore. It's been
Correct.
taken care of.
Okay. Ms. Healy, please.
In my role as my alter ego,
Mm-hmm.
it's correct. That was fixed as part of that development process.
That's good. Satisfied, Nelson?
Then I'm all set with the consent agenda.
Okay.
And,
With that being said, I don't see any other questions. Do I hear a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Let's see if I can find that motion. I find it out.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
There it is.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Dano, approved by Ms. Healy. Do I hear any questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, all abstaining. That's 500 to approve of the consent agenda, Robert. Next on our agenda is Black Diamond Holdings LLC as the applicant and MM Realty Trust as the owner. This is continued review for final approval of a site plan for the redevelopment of an existing automotive / junkyard use into a 102,600 square foot warehouse and associated site improvements. The parcel is located at 734 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Districts. That is tax map 7E, lot 31. That's case planning board number 2022-36. This item is continued from October 18th and November 15th planning board meetings. Robert, I believe you have something to say on this item.
Yep, just on this one, the applicant has submitted a continuance request to January 17th. They had a meeting conflict with tonight. Also in that letter, they have waived their 65-day review clock for the planning board, so they don't need to grant the board an extension to that anymore. They've just waived the clock entirely.
Thank you, Robert. Board members, any questions?
No question.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move this item to January 17th per the request of the applicant.
Motion made by Mr. Disco. Do I hear a second? Second by Maureen. Thank you. Any questions? All in favor of the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. All abstaining. That's 500 to continue that item. Next on the list is agenda item number 5. That's John J. Flatley Company as the applicant and the owner. This is continued review for consideration of an amendment to a previously approved mixed-use development conditional use permit, calling for the replacement of the previously proposed 20,000 square foot planned retail space with a 52,000 square foot self-storage facility. The parcels are located at 645, 673, 685, 703, and 707 Daniel Webster Highway and 5 Gilbert Drive in the I-1 Industrial, Aquifer Conservation, and Wellhead Protection Districts. That's Tax Map 6E, Lots 3-1, 3-3, 3-4, 3-5, 3-6, and 3-7. Case Planning Board number 2022-38. This item is also continued from the October 18th and November 15th Planning Board meetings. Robert, once again, do you have something for us?
Yep, once again, this applicant is requesting a continuance. This time, this is to finish the traffic study revisions that were needed in order to satisfy the ordinance criteria. So we're not quite done that process yet.
Thank you, Robert. Board members, any questions for Robert on that? I'll entertain a motion.
I will move this to January 3rd, I think was the request.
Yes.
Correct.
Per the request of the applicant.
Motion made by Mr. Disco. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Healy. Any further discussion? All in favor of the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. That's 5-0-0 to continue agenda item number 5. Next on the list is agenda item number 6. That's Starton Realty LLC, continued review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a site plan for the addition of a gas station, convenience store, and drive-through coffee shop at the site of an existing car wash. The parcel is located at 376 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial, Aquifer Conservation, and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. That's Tax Map 4D-3, Lot 002, Case Planning Board number 2022-40. This item is continued from the October 18th Planning Board meeting. Robert, what do you have for us on this one?
This applicant also is requesting a continuance to January 17th to address the comments raised during peer engineering review and during municipal department review.
Thank you, Robert. Board members, any questions for Robert? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move, Mr. Chairman, that we postpone this item to the January 17th meeting per the request of the applicant.
Motion made by Mr. Disco. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Dano. Any further discussion? All in favor of the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? That's 5-0-0 in favor of the continuance. Next, we have agenda item number 7. That's LMG Merrimack LLC as the applicant and Penachuk Corporation and LMG Merrimack LLC as the owners. This is continued review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a lot line adjustment. The parcels are located south of Harris Pond Drive on Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts. That's Tax Map 1D, Lots 1 and 1 through 6. Case number Planning Board 2022-44. This item is continued from the December 6th Planning Board meeting. Robert, do you have anything for us on this one?
I believe the applicant wants to open both cases, the site plan as well, on this one to discuss both kind of simultaneously since they're so intertwined.
Do you have any issue with
I,
that, Robert?
I have no objections to that.
Board members, do you have any quarrels with that? Okay. So you want me to read the next item in as well then, Robert?
Please.
We're going to fuse agenda item 7 with agenda item 8. 7 I've already previously read. Agenda item number 8 is LMG Merrimack LLC as the applicant and the owner. This is continued review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a site plan to construct a 100,115 square foot warehouse building. The parcel is located south of Harris Pond Drive on Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts. That's Tax Map 1D, Lot 1 through 6. Case number Planning Board 2022-45. This item is continued from the December 6th Planning Board meeting. Robert, given that, do you have anything else to add?
Okay, yeah, so this is in summary just a two-part application. The first part is a simple lot line adjustment to give the subject property some additional land to accommodate the site plan, which is for a 115 square foot warehouse building. The property currently is a vacant parcel that is just south of the southern entrance to the Harris Pond development. And that's basically about all I have to say at this time.
Thank you, Robert. The applicant can please introduce himself and tell us what you have.
You bet. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, and happy holidays to everybody. My name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a civil engineer with Hayner Swanson, Inc., doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire, tonight representing LMG Merrimack LLC. Peter Floats is joining us via the video feed. Peter's just recovering from a bout of COVID. He's based out of Melbourne, Florida, and he thought it may be best to hunker down tonight. And so if you hear my phone go off, it's probably him asking me to correct what is sure to be a few mistakes that I make moving forward. With me this evening is Bob Bollinger. Bob is our project traffic consultant, and also Tim Engelbert with Randall Paulson. They're our project architect. And thank you for combining these two, Mr. Chairman. It's just read into the record. We're seeking two approvals from the Merrimack Planning Board to support a development to be located on Daniel Webster Highway and really the south part of Merrimack, right on the Nashua border. We've made application for a lot line adjustment plan and the site plan. What I'd like to do tonight is give an overview of both projects. It is a lot of information. I will try to be succinct. I will try to be informative. And of course, when I'm through with the presentation, any members of our team would be happy to answer any questions you or the public may have. Property information, let's get you located. There's 2 lots involved with the subdivision plan. And we're in the south part of Merrimack on the Daniel Webster Highway. This is the Nashua border right here with Supply Ponds, Harris Pond and Supply Pond. And the 2 lots in question are 1D-1. It's land owned by Penachuk Corporation. It has frontage on Daniel Webster Highway here, as well as Manchester Street here. And a majority of this site is really buffered to the Supply Ponds and Harris Pond. There's a small cell tower that exists on this property located near the Daniel Webster Highway. The second property involved this evening is a 10-acre property owned by our client, LMG Merrimack LLC, and it has frontage on the Daniel Webster Highway, and currently it's an undeveloped parcel. Both tracts are zoned in the I-1 Industrial District, and together they're abutted by the Penachuk to the south, undeveloped land across Daniel Webster Highway. We have Harris Pond Commercial here. We have State of New Hampshire DOT land here. We have Harris Pond condos located here. With regard to topography, I'll tell you a little bit about the land. Moderate sloping land. This whole area kind of slopes towards the south, towards the Supply Ponds. We've done a number of test pits on the 10-acre site and found sandy soils. There are no wetlands upon the 10-acre property, and you can see on the aerial photo it's mostly wooded. There are utilities in the area to service this property. In fact, there's a 24-inch water main that runs from the Penachuk treatment plant up the Daniel Webster Highway, runs right through our property. The property has rights to connect to the sanitary sewer to the north. Power, telecommunications, and gas are also located in Daniel Webster Highway. Tim, if you could flip that board, please. What's being proposed is just a simple lot line adjustment between these 2 properties. Oh, I got it upside down. Thank you. In fact, they're all upside down after that. So the Penachuk property is here in blue, and our property is here in yellow. And actually between the two is a strip of land between the Penachuk operations facility and the subject site. And the proposal is to relocate that line, thereby granting 2.9 acres from the bigger PennCorp property into this site. PennCorp will go from 67.8 acres to 64.8, and the new site will go from 10 acres to 13 acres. Both lots after this lot line will continue to comply with the dimensional standards of the zoning. And that's really the presentation on the lot line. It's a fairly simple action of moving a lot line. Now, with regard to the site plan upon the newly created 13-acre, and Tim, if you could go to the next board, please. Yeah, we probably got to turn those upside down. Great, thank you. Okay. So I did rotate the angle a little bit. We've got the Daniel Webster Highway here, north is to the top. Okay. Our client feels strongly that there's a need in southern New Hampshire for smaller, more modern commercial industrial buildings. Many of the buildings in the greater Nashua area were built in the 60s and 70s and 80s and are in need of a more modern building. Those tend to have building heights that don't really meet the current standards of what people are looking for commercial and industrial properties. This building has been designed in such a way that it could support a warehouse user or a light assembly or a light industrial user. The building itself measures 100,000 square feet. It's a one-story building, and it's really set up for two 50,000 square foot tenants. A small office component within the perimeter of the building, inside the building for each tenant, measuring about 4,000 square feet each. And then the balance of the property is high bay space. The entrance of the building will face the Daniel Webster Highway. Loading docks in the rear. I think there's 27 total loading docks and 10 trailer parking spaces. Not a lot, but just enough in case there's a spare, they're able to store it on the property. Access to the site is from a single driveway connection to Harris Pond Drive. Harris Pond Drive is a private road that connects to the Daniel Webster Highway in two locations. So basically, if you remember the aerial I just showed you, goes around the Harris Pond commercial properties. This is the south end connection. It's a T intersection with the Daniel Webster Highway. Parking, your code requires 128 spaces. We're providing 133. They're located in a traditional arrangement located in the front of the site. There is full paved access around the building for life safety. 53% open space remains on the property. As I mentioned, utilities, sewer, water, gas, telephone, and power really all come from this location here into the site. The water main exists right through here on the property already. With regard to stormwater, as a designer, we attempt to address quality and quantity of stormwater runoff. With regard to quantity, we want to minimize the rate leaving the site so that we don't impact anybody downstream. And with regard to quality, we try to incorporate treatment measures to kind of filter out some of the pollutants that can be normally associated with paved parking areas. Our plan really will show two stormwater areas. There's one in the front here that pretty much captures the front parking field. And then one here along the southerly property line, which pretty much captures the roof in the back parking area. Both will have retention and detention components to it. At the end of the day, we've been able to control the rate of runoff that ends up leaving the lower basin and into the large drain line that was built many years ago that discharges to the south towards Pennachuck Brook. Each basin will contain a sediment forebay. It'll be a dry basin. It'll have vegetation. And these basins are set up really to allow the settling of suspended solids, and the vegetation can provide uptake for some of the pollutants, biological uptake of some of the pollutants in the stormwater. Landscaping and lighting plans were submitted as part of our application. Well, the landscape really tried to focus on the front. There is going to be a nice band of trees that exist along the Daniel Webster Highway that will remain. But the main focus, as you can see, was in the front of the site because the remaining perimeter of the site will remain wooded. Lighting plans have been submitted. No spillover onto any neighboring properties. Combination of light poles and wall packs. Downcast lighting, dark sky friendly lighting, and minimal security lighting at night. Architectural elevations, Tim, let's show them what you came up with. I think it's an attractive building. Essentially, it is a flat roof, fixed glass windows in the front over the canopied entrance here. We have panel accents both in terms of color variations and articulation in some of these vertical pieces along the front and side elevations to the building. The building will measure 43 feet to the ridge line. which complies with your zoning. I'd like to talk a little bit about traffic, because a full traffic study was done by Bob and his team at GPI. The scope of the study was reviewed with Daniel Webster Highway. I'm sorry, Tim, one more, if you could just flip that other board. You can see, I meant to say this on the architectural piece, you can kind of, it's a very neat perspective of the inside of the building. It's kind of cutting out one of the walls, so you can kind of see how Tim designs the building with the high bay, and you can see the docking. You can see the tilt-up panels in the back, and of course the slab on grade. So I brought this along because I thought it was a nice looking graphic to show the building. Okay, I started in on traffic. The scope of the study, Bob reviewed it with the DOT since our access is to Harris Pond Drive, and then the DW Highway, which is under the jurisdiction of the DOT. And that was really the main focus of the study, to make sure this was a safe intersection for this use. Bob's report concludes that site distance is good under this stop condition, looking both north and south. In the AM peak, they anticipate 36 new trips, 28 in, 8 out. PM peak, as you know, traffic is measured during the AM and the PM peak. 38 trips leaving, 11 in, 27 out. This project is not a big traffic generator. There are wide shoulders currently exist in the DW Highway, so a vehicle traveling southbound has ample safe room to peel off and get into the Harris Pond Drive. And similarly, traveling northbound, there's really a de facto left turn pocket right there to allow vehicles to enter into the site. No off-site mitigation measures are needed. The New Hampshire DOT has reviewed Bob's study and our plan. They have a couple minor comments, but the comments that are easily addressed. Mr. Chairman, our application for site plan does include one waiver. It's for interior parking lot landscaping, your SPR 3.11.H.1. The code requires, I believe, 10% internal landscaping in the front parking field. I believe we're providing 4%. Our position is that it's interesting because of the need to provide life safety access around the building. We're really creating a wonderful band, about a 35-foot green strip between that access point and the main parking. Now, we did not include those open spaces in those calculations, but we could probably re-engineer the site to make it part of the parking lot to achieve that. And so maybe the non-compliant open space in this lot is really made up, I think, in the surrounding areas to the parking lot. So our position is that we felt that was a more prudent way to go. As a designer, we're always trying to balance landscape areas with turning movements and with stormwater and with snow maintenance. And we've got, again, those larger green spaces. Our waiver letter, sir, does include a hardship request, which was to meet the requisite 10% in this lot. Would basically lose 8 to 10 parking spaces, and we think that's an unreasonable requirement with no real benefit to the public. Spirit and intent, your code really seeks for well-balanced plans. It speaks for those things I just talked about: landscape, turning, snow maintenance, and of course, we feel this plan meets that. A couple more quick points. Construction, we hope to begin the project this spring. It's about a 12-month construction schedule, maybe a little bit less. In summary, we believe both the lot line plan and the site plan are in accordance with your regulations. We've received comments to date from the Conservation Commission, and of course they had they corrected me on a phosphate note that I had, but they also wanted to make sure we had the green Snow Pro snow maintenance in the parking lot, which we've added and have in the plans, as well as some fertilizer notes that are pretty standard here in the town of Merrimack. As I mentioned, we did receive minor comments from DOT. We have just today received comments from peer review. I think to date, all the comments are fair comments, but I think they're readily addressed. I didn't see anything there that was kind of a fatal to the project. So with that, I think I've covered everything and be happy to answer questions. And I may seek to Tim on architecture and again, Bob on traffic if you have any questions along those lines. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petropoulos. Board members, before we move ahead, just the way we're going to move toward this. Robert, I'm looking at the staff comments on my sheet here. Given what he just said, do you guys feel comfortable moving forward, or would you still like us to continue the second part?
Given the fact that we did receive peer review after the cheat sheet was put together, we concur the comments are run-of-the-mill standard, nothing concerning. So we would be willing to change our recommendation to a conditional approval if the board feels it's appropriate to do so.
Okay, we've received comment from fire and everybody.
The other departments have been given the plans yet. Not all comments have come back in, but that's pretty standard.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Board members, this is a new plan in front of us. We can do them one at a time. They both need to be accepted, obviously. If you have any questions or if you'd like to accept them so we can move on with the discussion.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand, Mr. Chairman.
So neither of these plans, they're currently two separate plans, obviously. Neither of them have been accepted by the board as being complete.
Okay, you wanted a motion to accept these for review.
Correct,
for
before we move
consider-
on to discussion, unless you would like to
Okay.
go to discussion first.
I would so move, Mr. Chairman, that we accept them for review.
Both in one vote?
Yes,
Okay.
if that's
Motion
okay
made
with
by
the board.
Mr. Disco. Yeah, I believe that's okay.
Yeah.
Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Dano. Robert, are you okay with that? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting both items as complete, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, all abstaining. That's 5-0-0 for both items to be complete. Okay. General questions. Board members.
Okay.
Mr. Disco, fire
Okay.
away.
I have several questions, Mr. Chairman, but I'll start with the traffic because we didn't receive anything in our packet on the traffic. I'd like to know more about what the traffic comments were and if and where any impacts on Route 3 occur as a result of this. So maybe you could tell us a little more about the traffic.
Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Yeah, make sure the mic in front of you is lit.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Introduce
Good
yourself
evening.
and then
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Robert Bollinger, Greenman Peterson, doing business at 116 South River Road in Bedford, New Hampshire, and the traffic engineer for the project. I can certainly provide a general overview. I have not had the benefit of seeing the peer review comments yet. So I can't specifically address anything that was mentioned in Fuss and O'Neill's letter or memo that was issued recently. Overall, what our study found, even though the traffic volumes projected are below the town's threshold for completing a full traffic study, we wanted to satisfy everybody. We had seen some of the prior documentation in the area, and I think this is probably the first complete traffic study that this board has seen in this area of town in quite some time, perhaps since the Benning Court development was approved. So we felt as part of our due diligence, we wanted to provide a full study, both for the benefit of the town as well as for the benefit of New Hampshire DOT. As Mr. Petropoulos alluded to, we will need most likely an amended driveway permit from New Hampshire DOT, as it is already a legally permitted driveway, Harris Pond South. So with that being stated, Mr. Petropoulos did speak briefly about the trip generation. Overall, despite the size of some of these buildings, they don't tend to be massive generators. At least during the peak hour periods, we're roughly talking 36 peak hour trips during the AM peak hour, 38 trips during the PM peak hour, and that's inclusive of employees, of trucks, deliveries, and whatnot. Overall, what you're really talking about, what that translates to, is roughly a 1 to 2% increase in traffic during the peak hours. As part of our analysis, we conducted an operational analysis. We looked at our site driveway on Harris Pond Road. It's going to operate exceptionally, our little stub on the southern end of Harris Pond Drive. We also looked at the intersection of Harris Pond south at Daniel Webster Highway. And we also looked at the signalized location to the north, understanding that the fourth leg, Benning Court, was recently added. And we also accounted for a number of other projects that were proposed in the area recently. I believe there was 5, and we most proximate to our site, we assumed full occupancy of the Benning Court development. Obviously, it's still under, still in the occupation phase, if you will. So we kind of wanted to make sure it was complete. Robert's office was great in providing the information that helped us sort of piece these things together. Effectively, what we found, we have minimal impact at the signal to the north, good levels of service, and again, that's assuming full occupancy of the Benning Court development as well as the addition of our traffic. Operationally, our driveway on Harris Pond Road, outstanding level of service. As you are looking at the intersection of Harris Pond Road with Daniel Webster Highway to the south, we're going to have a negligible impact there. As folks know, if you're making an unsignalized left turn, you're probably going to have to wait a little bit. Our study showed that. That's the case now. That's going to be the case with or without us. The good news is all the movements still operate well below capacity, and you're basically going to have a queue length on that approach of, we're estimating about 1 or 2 vehicles. It's a very minor queue. Overall, no significant impact, and we believe that there is sufficient roadway capacity on the surrounding system to handle this traffic in terms of traffic operations, site distance, and your basic other operational parameters.
Mr. Bollinger, you said not to cut you off there.
Certainly,
but,
yes.
Obviously, the wait time for trying to turn left out of your driveway. Dealing with the trucks, I'm trying to place in my head where you are along Daniel Webster Highway. I believe it'd be closer to the highway if you were turning south, correct? So you wouldn't, trucks leaving your property would be turning south towards Nashua. They're going towards exit 7, correct?
It would depend. We did make some assumptions because we're dealing with you're dealing with employees,
Yeah.
obviously. and
No,
you're-
yeah, I'm strictly
you're
talking
dealing-
about the delivery trucks.
and you're dealing with the trucks,
Yes.
right? What we assumed for trucks, you've got 2 possibilities. If you're going southerly, yes, I 100% agree. You would probably go down to exit 7. However, if you were destined to and from the north, you'd probably head up to exit 10 potentially. So what we assumed is roughly a 50-50 split of the trucks.
Okay.
So yes, you are going to have, presumably both left and right turns out of Harris Pond Drive. So I hope that addresses your question, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
no, it did.
Certainly, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Disco asked what maybe some of the comments we received to date. And while Bob was presenting the overview, I was able to pull up an email from the DOT with 6 comments, and they mostly have to do with needing a truck turning movement, adding a note to the drawing, looking at a granite paver detail, looking at white thermoplastic, and some kind of geeky engineering kind of stuff for the plans. Bob has not seen this because it's fresh from today, but the Fuss and O'Neill report speaks to traffic, and it has 4 paragraphs. The first basically says we reviewed this study. The second says that they agree with the methodology used. I'll read the third paragraph. Overall, based on the information provided, we concur the report's conclusion that the traffic generated by the proposed development will have minimal impacts on the surrounding DW Highway roadway network and can be safely accommodated by the existing road. The fourth paragraph questions Bob a little bit on one of the ITE codes that we used. We can double check using the code that they suggested. But, anyway, I thought that was worth reading into the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petropoulos. Robert, I'm trusting that you've seen Fuss and O'Neill's comments. Did anything stick out?
Yep, I
Mr.
actually
Petropoulos just went through them. It doesn't sound like
I
it,
had
but-
that same paragraph highlighted in case Jim didn't have that available. I was going to read that. So yeah, nothing
That's
sticks out.
something that staff will be able to handle any kind of code issue that they would have to recalculate.
Absolutely. There's a standard, anything like that would be a standard condition of approval to address Fuss and O'Neill's comments that could be addressed after the fact with a revised traffic analysis that would be reviewed.
Thank you, Robert. Mr. Disco, you need to continue?
Yeah, just to follow up. I gathered from what you read here, there's no need for a stacking lanes turning left going northbound or turning right going southbound, both in and out of the site.
That is correct, Mr.
I'm
Disco.
surprised, yeah.
No off-site mitigation is required. There is presently an exclusive northbound left turn lane on Daniel Webster Highway to turn into the southerly end of Harris Pond Drive. Similarly, there is a very wide shoulder on the southbound side, quite wide actually, about 13, 14 feet at least. That sort of acts as a de facto separate right turn lane.
Yeah.
So you certainly have the auxiliary lanes present there. And then obviously to the north as well at the signal, it was recently reconstructed, but you have the requisite turn lanes that you would kind of expect at a larger signalized intersection. So to answer your question specifically, sir, no additional geometric improvements are warranted by this project.
Okay, that's good news. But tell me a little bit, there's a piece of land between Harris Pond and this property. It goes off the map there, which looks to me like a leftover of exit 9.
You're correct.
Yeah, and what is the prognosis for that piece of land being developed into something that would cause some headaches here at this intersection?
Mr. Nelson Mr. Disco never forgets anything.
He's been on this board longer than
I
I've been
love
alive, so I would expect him not.
What he's referring to is a really unique piece of property right here. He's correct. Back in the 80s, the high-flying 80s, the state preferred a number of properties for the circumferential highway. This is one of them. There's also one across the street, actually, as well.
Yeah.
And they condemned and purchased this property. It's got a very small sliver of frontage. It narrows down and then it opens up here. I don't think that it's got great development potential by itself. I'm sure my client would have liked to have purchased it, but we're somewhat beyond that. You know, we're moving forward with our project as it exists today. So I suspect it will remain in its current condition. And it just really serves as a buffer right now between the resi and the commercial to this property and of course the Penachuk property. So
Is it still owned by the state?
it is.
Okay. Eventually,
It's a fun
somebody will
fact.
be
You'll
in here
try.
with a,
Yes, obviously.
yeah. Okay, I wanted to ask about that, and no consideration was taken in the traffic study, and obviously there's no plan right now. So, okay. Just wanted to ask the question. Thank you.
Valid questions, Mr. Disco.
Okay, I have other questions.
Please,
Unless
continue.
somebody else wants to turn here. That was taken care of. Let me see. The two handouts that we got had two different visions of the boundaries of this property, and they're shown on the aerials. You see this
Yeah.
one?
Oh, yeah.
Which one is which?
What are we looking at here? Yeah.
So I apologize for that. It's the same property, the same subject site, and the area of transfer is shown on that particular aerial. I made that aerial as part of the submission. But for the meeting tonight, I wanted to give you a more global view of the surrounding properties, and especially that DOT piece of property, which isn't there, as well as showing you the entire perimeter of the Penachuk property. So the same subject site is the same area, and it's the same area of transfer. I've just elaborated and kind of showed you a more global view on this area.
What I was concerned about, there's a yellow and a blue on there. Yellow and a blue property line.
Aerials that staff provide.
So Tim
Oh.
put together a lot line adjustment aerial.
So
showing all
the
parties
yellow,
that are involved in this.
correct me if
Something
I'm
that
wrong,
obviously
Robert's going
captured.
over it. That's just the lot line adjustment. So that's the yellow is the piece of land that will be
Yes,
added to the blue tract.
yes.
Okay,
So
so
you, yes, so
so
the
the
original
yellow is
tract as
more-
it stands today is the blue. They want to add in that little bit of yellow.
okay,
So that's why there's one lot line adjustment and then the actual building.
yeah. Okay, so it comes right down to and it butts the Pennachuck land, which is developed now more recently.
That's correct, yes, sorry.
Okay, okay, thank you. That explains that. And the other, there's another view that doesn't have that on it, and I wasn't sure what we were what we were looking at. Does the bridge show anywhere in your plan? There's the bridge over the Pennachuck Brook,
Yeah.
and,
It's off our property, further to the south. It's located in this location here. There's obviously the bridge of, the Daniel Webster Highway crossing Pennachuck Brook. But this is an old remnant of Old Concord Road,
yeah,
even before you, Mr. Disco.
yeah. Well, I still know
And also,
about it.
there's a stone arch bridge there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bridge, and it still exists. But it's well away, it's well off our property.
And it's not on Pennachuck property?
It is, yes,
It is on,
Yes.
okay.
yeah.
But there's no plan to do anything with that. I mean, that's sort of an historical artifact.
It is, and in fact, it does show up on our land plan. You identify the existing bridge located right down here.
Uh-huh,
But you can see it's off the subject site that
Yeah.
we're proposing tonight.
okay. Okay, thank you. It mentions that there's no access to there's a tower on this property now, on the property, the smaller lot, and it says there's no access to it. And what do we do about that?
Yeah, there actually is access. There's,
There's a note on the plan that says no access, but maybe that's not correct.
the property currently exists with a gravel access that runs down
Yeah.
Old Concord Road.
Yep.
And that does provide the access to the cell tower here,
Uh-huh.
and that will remain. It's an obligation of this property, which will end up owning the land underneath it, but the easement to the cell tower, but we must provide access to them, so there will be access to that cell tower.
It's not shown on the plans anywhere.
Well, I think it's shown by the fact that this is gonna remain just the way it is in the front. It's gravel
But
condition.
it doesn't quite connect to the tower.
Oh, it does, yes.
I mean, it doesn't show on the plan.
Okay, we could be more clear about that. That's an easy one.
I think it should be clarified. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, oh yeah, the landscaping plan that you provided did not identify the species or what you were providing. As I look at it, you'll find the page here, it's toward the end of the file. Page.
Is it page 18?
Could be. Let me get there. Thank you. Yes, it's page, where is that? Yeah, page 18. It shows a lot of little symbols for different types of vegetation, but
Right.
I don't see where they're identified.
Yeah, so if you flip the page to page 19, up in the upper right, there's a plant list material list with all the plant materials.
But does it identify it?
Oh, yeah. It gives the quantity, it gives the sizing, it gives the Latin language, if you'd like me to read the Latin
Not necessarily.
descriptions, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah.
Some birch, some spruce, pine.
Oh, okay, these little, these, another criticism, these come out very small.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
But I couldn't figure out what kind of trees these were, like TIL. What's a TIL?
Okay, well, we can help you with that. TIL.
5 TIL.
That's a linden tree.
Okay.
Tilia tementosa.
Okay. It is here. I didn't know the information was back there on that page, but I couldn't figure it out from page 8 itself.
Yep.
The other I had was of the next page, which isn't numbered, and it's the lighting plan. And the lighting plan, again, I couldn't read the numbers,
Sure.
but I think they should be shown. And what we're interested in, one of the things we're interested in anyway, is the spillover.
Sure.
You've showed me the lighting intensity on the parking areas and on the roadways, but nothing in between.
Yeah.
And we like to look at
Sure.
what's in between and what's,
Well, what we did do, or what the consultant did do here, is at the property line, you'll also see a series of shots, and obviously they're more legible on the full-size sheet than the 11 by 17s. But they will show 0.0 foot candle levels at the perimeter of the property.
is that what this shows?
Yes.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah, I can't even read that one. So I'll give you- those are definitely not.
The full-size,
Yes.
the full-size drawings, you can see it. And what that proves is just what you said, you don't want any spillover going over the property.
Yeah.
And if it's 0, with the line, that's really the goal of what you're trying to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Okay. I think that takes care of my comments. In the back, quite kind of. See here, see the show.
Mr. Disco, was that all?
I think that's all I have. If I think it takes care of, yeah, I'm satisfied. for
Satisfied. Board members, any other questions? Otherwise, we can go to the public hearing.
Yeah.
Maureen, or-
In the staff memo, it says that there's, you had a waiver for sidewalks. That wasn't mentioned. Did you withdraw that waiver?
So Roberts Key and I picked up that I had missed, when I made the application, I had missed the text in the ordinance, which is not a requirement of the regulations. It's up to the planning board if they'd like to institute traffic or sidewalk, I'm sorry. And therefore, I didn't need to ask for a waiver of something that wasn't a requirement, if I have that right, Robert. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's why I withdrew it. It was on the original application, but I've got to strike that.
Got it.
Of course, sidewalk, there's no sidewalk out there now, and this sidewalk would be DOT, and DOT, they don't like sidewalk.
They've got them on the opposite side
They
of
do,
the
yes,
street.
sir. Yes, they do.
Okay, so that's why I didn't say anything. I don't know if they go around the Harris Pond Loop Road there. Is there sidewalk there?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Starting from right about here, there's sidewalk that goes around Harris Pond Drive,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, see, that will still have sidewalk on
Yes,
it,
yes, sir.
but none on Route 3. I guess I have a hard time figuring people want to walk to Nashua.
There is a there's a
big
sidewalk
one.
on the other side that
On the
extends
other
all the way
side,
down to Congress Street, correct? I
Yeah,
mean, granted, you would have to cross
yeah.
Daniel Webster Highway,
You have to
yes.
go up to the traffic lights to do
Yes.
that, yeah.
But there is a crosswalk at the northern signal.
The signal, yes, there is.
Response.
Yeah. I guess I'm okay with that. I don't know how the others feel.
Maureen, you had something to add?
So I'm just wanting to make sure for clarification that, so we're looking to move the lot line so that this new piece of property, 13,000 square feet, I believe it was, is where this building is going to be. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so the other property that loops around, that is wooded, could anything be built there? It's all wetland?
Are you talking
Jim?
remaining Penachuk land?
Grab the microphone behind you. There's a standing mic.
So the rest of this blue right here.
Yeah, so you're asking about the remaining Penachuk Corporation land, the 64 acres. I've had the good fortune of representing Penachuk for many years. I think it's safe for me to say that no, this is land that's owned by the water company. It's for the protection of the supply ponds. It is land not intended to be developed. In fact, this is the last piece of property coming out of this parent track that can be developed. And the reason that is because this grades down here. It slopes down to the brook, but it's on the downside of the intake of the Penachuk treatment facility. So this is watershed land that they want to protect, but here it's on the downside. So I think it's safe to say that land cannot be developed.
Okay.
Just
but-
to add-
but the DOT land below that could be developed.
I
But
don't
we don't
represent them, so I can't really speak to
Okay.
what it is. As somebody who represents developers, it's not a highly attractive piece of property because of its geometry.
But it
you know,
is
it-
Merrimack.
Pardon me?
But it is Merrimack.
It is, it is Merrimack.
So and then again, help me with this understanding. So we're looking to have a building built that will house 2 commercial tenants and are you looking for the trucks to be like there on site and that people are coming in and taking these trucks and deliverables out? Or are you looking that trucks will be coming there to pick up things that are manufactured there? Like, what will it look like?
So it is a speculative building. We do not have tenants as of today. The goal would be to get tenants who I would hope would make a product and they would be able to receive goods to make that product and then they could ship them out. And everything would happen behind the building back here. As we know, e-commerce is changing the way we live. We're seeing a lot of big buildings that are pure docking, mini trucks, whether it's Amazon or some of these. That's not really what we're trying to do here. This is for commercial tenants that want to grow in the area into a more modern building.
Okay, and so something that wouldn't look like, whether it be any, I guess, kind of material, employees going there, parking there, and then leaving in their trucks.
There would be office personnel that would park in the front. If they had a delivery component to the tenant space, the drivers would park in the front, they would walk in the back. There is a small driver's lounge back there in case somebody brings in a good from a long distance and they want to freshen up. There's a restroom back there and things like that. But yeah,
And how many parking spots are we looking at?
133.
133. Okay. I'm just thinking, is that calculated into the traffic of people coming in, working there, getting into trucks and leaving?
Yes, based on the type of facility that is proposed, our peak hour analysis, those are all inclusive. Those would be deliveries, those would be employees, those would be vehicles leaving to make a delivery, constrained to those specific AM and PM peak hour periods that were under analysis.
Okay.
And the size of the building, of course.
And again, what was the reason for not wanting to put any more landscaping in the parking lot area?
Well,
More convenience?
I'm trying to balance turning movements of vehicles, drainage, snow plowing. We believe we've got a good balance there. We've got a nicely landscaped front, and we've got a larger green area here than I think a lot of parking lots have. So we believe the combination lends itself to an attractive site. The way the code reads, I have to draw a line right around the edge of the parking and provide 10%, which we don't have. But if I drew it around this whole thing, I'd probably have 30%, so just trying to provide a balance. If I had to lose 8 to 10 parking spaces, the truth is I'm gonna make them up somewhere else, and I don't think it's going to be as functional as what this is.
Thank you.
Speaking on that, just I know if Bob were here, we'd absolutely say he doesn't like the sea of pavement idea. But just personally, just the section of town that it's in, the purpose and size of the building, and the fact that you do have it surrounded by vegetation. I mean, I would be more than fine with moving ahead with it. Board members, Ms. Healy, please.
Yeah, from seeing how we got residential in the area, we don't want to see your building.
Correct.
I guess that's the best way to say it. So put all the vegetation you want, but we don't want to see your building. So question for you. I looked on the plan. I do not see a snow storage area. I know you said it was marked. I don't see it. Where are you putting it?
So sheet 6 of 21. Identifies areas along the drive aisle leading into the back here, as well as this probably large area here for snow storage. It'll take that back parking lot. And then areas in here to accommodate the front parking lot.
So where are you putting it again?
I
Because I
didn't
was
hear
busy
you.
looking at your sheets. So where are you putting it? Where's the snow storage areas
Sheet-
exactly?
Sheet 6 of 21
I'm on
identifies,
sheet 6, but show me on your diagram.
it identifies this area here
Okay,
along this row. It identifies this large area here, which will pick up this whole back loading dock area. And then it identifies these areas here to pick up the front parking field.
okay. Now, you also mentioned, I thought I heard you say that you're applying to DOT for a curb cut or access directly onto DW versus having to go Harris Pond Road? No, you're not?
No.
Okay, because I was going to say, where are you putting that? You had said, you've made some statements about why you're building this. You do know we have approximately 7 other warehouses going up in Merrimack. And Merrimack has no desire to be the warehouse center of southeastern, New Hampshire or southern New Hampshire. So what makes this building so special and modern that you're building it with all of the other competition you have going up all along the DW?
It's a good location.
Well,
It's zoned properly. And our client has the right to develop his property in accordance with zoning.
absolutely, but we don't want an empty warehouse either, sitting there, aging. So just
nor do
something to
we.
think about.
Nor do we.
Okay.
Will that be all, Ms. Healy?
Yes, thank you.
Board members, anything else? Otherwise, we can move towards the public hearing.
Just one thing.
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Disco,
Chairman.
please.
I mentioned this once before, and I know you said the fire department had not reviewed, but is there a note somewhere that says if there's, hazardous chemicals or whatever being packaged, stored, or whatever in this building, they've got to go through the fire department? Words to that effect. I didn't say that very well.
I don't know if that's on the plan at this point, but that is standard course of action anyhow.
It would be. Thank you.
Yep.
That's good. Thank you.
Seeing nothing else, I'd now like to take the time to open up the public hearing for agenda items 7 and 8, both at once. Any members of the public wish to step forward, please, sir, to the microphone. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you have.
Hi. My name is Bill Fallon. I've been on Merrimack Drive for 28 years, retired truck driver, and I have very numerous objections and legal challenges to this project. I apologize. I shouldn't be speaking because we have a board of directors and we also have a management company for Harris Pond. And unfortunately, I don't know why, but they weren't notified of this. I don't know how.
We
or
can
what.
that
Yeah.
we can bring it up to staff and we'll get clarification on that.
Okay, but
Which I'm sure he's looking for now. So.
I talked to one of the board of directors last night, and when I told him what was going on, he said he didn't know anything about it, and he was against it. Everybody I've talked to has been against it. Now, well, first of all, the legal challenge is that Harris Pond Drive is our road. Okay, and we were never notified, you know, and asked for permission for this.
Is that a private road?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a private road, and we, right now, we cannot afford the upkeep for it. And for this to go through, you know, there will be a legal challenge for this because it's our road, and they never asked permission for this. As far as, you know, 40 years ago, that was zoned industrial, okay? That land is not industrial anymore. You know, you have residents all around it. You have an apartment complex across the street, okay? You know, even though it's zoned industrial, it is not. It is a residential area. We had one of our neighbors move south to Hayden Green down right on the other side of Pennachuck. And when she moved, you know, Pennachuck built their building. And she used to walk from Hayden Green to our house, and we did too. And one thing, when Pennachuck built it, she was upset because they didn't put any sidewalks in. There's a lot of people who want to walk from, you know, Harris Pond, you know, the apartments down to the big one, you know, the farm stand, you know, and there's no sidewalks on either side of the street at that point, you know, going into Nashua. That's a DOT issue, you know, that, you know, but that's, but it is turning into a residential, you know, neighborhood. As far as the businesses at the plaza, you have a daycare center, you know, with kids there. You also have an adult daycare center with adult vans going in and out. And we have a lot of people who walk, you know, their pets, and most of them walk down Harris Pond Drive to the end, you know, and back. That's a favorite walking area for all our pets. But everybody I've talked to so far, you know, is against it, but they, you know, they didn't know about it, and that's but if it does go through, there will be a legal challenge because we own Harris Pond Drive, and so unfortunately, you know, our board of directors and our management company, you know, aren't good at keeping up with things and, you know, and letting us know what's going on. But all the residents are upset because of this. And the way it's set up, the trucks would be backing up and they'd be facing the 80 to 90, you know, Merrimack Drive. Every Monday morning at 6 o'clock, I wake up every Monday morning at 6 o'clock because Waste Management comes and they come to the plaza and empty the dumpsters. They have 3 dumpsters. And I've had to call them a couple of times and they've had to change their schedule. But having the dock side on that side facing, you know, Merrimack Drive, you know, is wrong. And there's no, there'd be no buffer on Harris Pond Drive for people. And, you know, but there'll be a lot of objections and challenges, you know, so going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. Is that Is that all you have?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing to both agenda items 7 and 8. Before we head back to you, Mr. Petropoulos, Robert, could you speak? Let's start with the notifications.
Yeah, so Harris Pond was not notified, but as I look at GIS, it clearly shows that the DOT parcel we spoke of earlier separates this subject property from them, so they are not a direct abutter to the project. Only the commercial portion of the plaza, which is a separate parcel, is an abutter to the project.
So the commercial part of the plaza is not the same parcel, so they would not have been.
Correct, and the commercial portion was notified.
Okay.
Yep.
Next, could you speak on the road? The standing in the road, private, public.
It is a private road.
It is a private road, so the rights to use that road, I'm actually a little fuzzy on that. So
Yeah. So I think the applicant actually can speak to that.
okay, well, give me 1 second. We'll jump to that. Now the zoning. Could you just explain for the record how zoning works? That it doesn't, to my understanding, it does not change as certain things move into that certain zone.
Right, the parcel is zoned industrial 1, warehousing and distribution are allowed uses on the property, so it complies with the zoning ordinance. At that point, really, all they would have to do is design a plan that complies with the site plan regulations. And if they do that, then the board's charge would be to review it against that and then act accordingly.
So we also, just to touch on that, we do have other places in town that do are either zone commercial or zone industrial that far more residential people are now moving into those zones. That does not change the label.
It does
of
not
the
change
zone.
the underlying zone. Many other projects in those areas would either have special zoning designations. For example, Harris Pond itself is a part of a planned unit development because it's part of an overlay district that happens to sit here.
Correct.
Before I say that, I don't know that that's accurate, so I won't say that. However, other developments in town could also have been allowed where they are by variance or other ZBA relief that would have allowed it.
Correct. Thank you. The next one I thought I was sure of, but now he says I may be incorrect. The sidewalk, I thought there was a sidewalk on the opposite road that did extend all the way. I thought it ended at the big one.
So there is a sidewalk along Daniel Webster Highway.
Yeah.
There is it is on the easterly side of the highway, so
on
the
river
Edgebrook side.
of the
Yep,
highway, yeah.
correct. There is not one on this side. There is one internally to Harris Pond Drive that does connect the loop around. And you were right, as you said earlier, there is now a crosswalk at the Benning Court entrance, which is the beginning of Edgebrook development across the street.
So how far does that sidewalk on the river side of the road extend?
It
south?
does. When I looked it up, it does not extend all the way to the city line, but it
Okay.
does extend, yes, partially down the hill, not quite to Penachuk's driveway for the warehouse.
Because I believe the walkway in Nashville starts again at Penachuk's site and it continues almost all the way down Concord Street, Main Street.
Looks like, yeah, it'd be on the other side of the bridge.
Correct.
Yep.
And since that is a DOT road, I mean, shy of making them put a sidewalk on the opposite side of a road sidewalk, we can't make the state do much about that.
So the planning board a couple of years ago did adopt a bike and pedestrian plan.
Correct.
So that was our leverage to be able to require sidewalk along Daniel Webster Highway in the DOT jurisdiction areas.
Okay.
So we do have the right to do that, but it's up to the planning board to decide whether or not, based on the way the regulations are written, that they'd want to see one in that spot.
So along, I understand that it does not extend all the way down. I don't know if you're looking at it right now.
Yep.
Just on the property frontage of this specific agenda item, is there a sidewalk across the street
Directly across UW Highway
for their frontage?
on their frontage side, no.
No, I mean like
But on the
street,
opposite, yes.
It does exist.
Yes,
Okay.
it does exist.
So what I'm getting at is making them put a sidewalk in front of their property will do nothing but double up the amount of sidewalk that is already there.
Yep.
Okay. So that one. I think that was it. All I had for you, Robert, and board members. We can return to Robert if need be. for the applicant, just looking at the GIS map and trying to give it a frame of reference with your site plan, while I understand the truck lights for delivery, and we'll get to delivery times, obviously, while the trucks are backed up, as they would be perfectly, it looks like the lights will not be shining at Merrimack Road. Am I orienting that correctly? They should be shining almost directly over Pennachuck Supply Pond. And,
Correct. Headed to the north, correct?
just at the way that's oriented. With that being how, I mean, this is obviously just from the GIS map, it looks relatively wooded. How much of a buffer are you leaving?
Yeah. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to answer that question.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple other points Mr. Fallon brought up, if I may. Okay. With regard to buffers, the closest unit for condominium in Harris Pond to the property line is 320 feet. To our proposed building is about 400 feet. Again, that DOT land is about 100 feet wide, maybe a little bit more the further you go to the west. Okay, and that natural buffer will remain. Our site will sit lower, so there'll be kind of a natural hill there
It is,
as
yeah.
well, which will provide better buffering. And the chair is correct that as trucks, Tim, if you could rotate that board, just leave it right where it is, just turn it 90 degrees, no, the other way. Yeah. So that they're oriented the same. If trucks are nosing in, the movement would be to enter the site, move this way, back in, and then leave. Those lights are heading towards the Pennachuck. They're not heading anywhere near the residential properties here. I appreciate Mr. Fallon's comments. I appreciate Robert's responses about proper notification, proper zoning. Many of these, if I may add, many of these residential uses in the industrial area are there by variance. All of this property was zoned industrial at one time. With regard his assertion of a legal challenge, I'm afraid Mr. Fallon just doesn't have a good command of the facts, and that's understandable. I brought with me a copy of a declaration of covenants. It's recorded at the registry. This is the document that was created when Harris Pond was conceived. And Harris Pond was intended to be fully developed here. The state took a portion of that project that was unyet built. And there were mutual easements between the Pennachuck property and the Harris Pond property, all documented in here, where it discussed rights of access, rights of utilities. Our property, just as the Harris Pond property enjoys coming onto our property at the intersection with Daniel Webster Highway, our property enjoys the rights of access around Harris Pond Drive. And sir, I can cite the book and page for you before you leave this evening if you want to look that up, but it's fully documented. The town has a copy of this document. It was part of our submittal this evening. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you. Just the last thing I wanted to touch on.
If they have a right of easement, are they gonna pay for the upkeep of Harris Pond Drive?
Sir, that's if you want to contact the department, you can, but the public hearing session is over at this time.
I'll be happy to answer that through you, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please, yes.
That is spelled out in here. Costs and responsibilities. To answer the gentleman's question, yes. This property will have exposure to upkeep of Harris Pond Drive.
So what you're saying, by use of that variance, you do take on whatever proportional responsibility for the upkeep of that.
Well, it's not a variance, it's
Well,
a declaration of
Yeah,
covenants.
you know what I mean. Yeah. Incorrect verbiage, but yes. Okay. The last little thing, for the delivery times, granted that the truck lights will not be pointing in that direction, but just from my experience, this kind of light industrial is not like a 24/7 use. So I'm assuming, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that deliveries will be during normal business hours.
Correct.
Okay. Board members, anything I did not touch on or you would like to add?
I
Please,
just
Mr. Disco.
thought of something as we were talking about
Please.
the pedestrian access to Nashua. And we talked a little bit earlier about a bridge that crosses the Pennachuck and this gravel road. Could that be a walking path to Nashua?
It would not lead to any public destination in Nashua. It would not lead to a public road. It would lead into
I believe it
Pennachuck
ends.
facility itself.
It ends in Pennachuck's parking lot, I
Yeah,
believe.
it ends
correct?
up within the Pennachuck lot.
the old Concord.
So it would be a sidewalk to nowhere.
Okay, but could it be extended? Let's look at it that way. If it, once it goes over that bridge, it's still on Pennachuck property, or not Pennachuck, it's unknown right now.
It is Pennachuck, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Pencorp, yeah.
Then is there a way that it could connect up to pedestrian ways in Nashua? You know what I mean?
I do.
Making it-
I mean, and if you're asking, is it possible to construct from
Well,
the bridge to Concord Street in Nashua, the answer is probably yes. Do they, would Pennachuck grant that right? I don't know.
yeah.
I
would
can't
be-
speak to that.
I mean, granted, I don't work for Pennachuck, but given that they're going over a bridge, and I'm assuming that bridge is from, I don't know, 1800s, the stone bridge of Old Concord. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
would find it hard
It's
to
an
believe.
old bridge.
I would find it hard to believe they would be okay with that. But granted, that would be up to Pennachuck. So
Yeah.
I see where you're going with that now.
Just a question.
Correct. No, I understand. Any other questions, board members? Ms. Healy, please go ahead.
Question for Robert. Are you aware of the document that's being referenced regarding the mutual right-of-way on Harris Pond?
Well,
Has your office reviewed that, and are you satisfied with it?
I haven't reviewed anything specifically, no. But we do have a copy of it, and it is a recorded document at the registry, but no, I have not personally reviewed that document.
Okay. Because obviously we didn't see it either, so.
Any other comments, board members? We've accepted it as complete. We've gone through the public hearing. If there are no other questions, do I hear action on either of the agenda items? Remember, we can deal with these separately if you wish, or we can move forward with both of them together. You'd rather deal with them separately? Okay, then I can entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the lot line adjustment as requested, pending any comments in the staff memo.
I know, Robert. There was a comment. I'm trying to find it. Go ahead, please.
Staff memo,
Say it again.
the end of the staff memo.
That's what it was. He had specific verbiage he wanted.
Just to extend.
All right, correction. I make a motion to find, with the proposed conditions of approval, that the lot line adjustment meets all applicable regulatory requirements, and to grant conditional final approval to the lot line adjustment subject to the recommended conditions of approval presented in a staff memo dated December 13th, 2022.
Motion made by Mr. Dano. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Ms. Healy. Board members, just to remind you, that is only regarding agenda item 7, the lot line adjustment. This does not pertain to agenda item 8, anything dealing with the site plan review. Any questions? Seeing no questions, all in favor of the lot line adjustment, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. That's 5-0-0 for the lot line adjustment. That's close to half of it down. Next, for the questions, further actions regarding the next item. Anything that anybody is not satisfied with? Anybody want to try to vote it down, vote it up? Mr. Disco, please.
I'll give you a motion to approve the site plan.
Before you do, there's the
but I need
outstanding
to-
waiver request.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, we
Whoops.
steamrolled right
Okay.
over the waivers. I apologize, Robert.
Okay.
So the only waiver we're looking at would be a waiver for section 3.0 Point 11, point I, point 1, point little I pertaining to interior landscape and parking lots, correct, Robert? Because they do not need one for the sidewalk.
That's correct.
Okay. Myself personally, I already said what I thought. We're never fans of seas of pavement, but I rather like that design better than what we would have found, say, like you'd seen a Market Basket parking lot with it all broken up. So, any other thoughts?
I'll move to approve the waiver, given the specific circumstances relative to the site plan or conditions of the land in such site plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulation.
Motion made by Mr. Dano. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mr. Disco. Do we have any discussion, excuse me, on this item? Seeing none, all in favor of the waiver being approved, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? That is 3-0, Robert, with Maureen and Miss Healy voting no. Okay, that waiver is out of the way. Discussion on the overall project. What are people not happy with? What would they like to see change? Open discussion. I can, with the development in town, I can appreciate the frustration of some people in town dealing with, they believe that their area should be residential. Personal friend that lives in the middle of town that he's upset about the lights on Daniel Webster Highway, even though it's a very commercialized district and it is a commercial district. I mean, I hate saying the phrase that where you live where you live, but at that point, if that's the part of town you live in, that's the part of town you live in. Miss Healy, please.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that it's technically a private road on Harris Pond, but that governing body for the development did not get a chance to even examine the situation and hear what was going on, even though it may not have required, notification. Still, it's a private road and they should have received notification. So I'm very uncomfortable with that. Yes, Bob says he's got a copy of the document, but still, it's a private road. And yes, there may be a document allowing easements, access, etc., but it's a private road. So that's just my feeling on it.
Thank you, Miss Healy. Well, I understand that. I would be hard pressed to say that it is absolutely our jurisdiction, but at something that level, I would expect to be worked out through the court system, the legal system. I understand, yes, but still, Robert, I know that would obviously be something that our either engineers or legal department would be reviewing, given decisions.
Yeah, most likely Fuss and O'Neill during a follow-up
Correct.
review at the end. Yeah.
Do we have, I believe we do, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Do we have any similar situations where a private road is then enjoined by a second party that then has to take?
Off the top of my head,
Yeah.
I can't think of one, but
I'm sure there is with the amount of private roads we have in this town.
Yep.
I just cannot pull one out of my head. I only hesitate to say no to that due to, I mean, there's a legal document that the,
Actually, I guess, to a much different scale. Crosswoods Path, the apartment development that most recently was done up in the front, their access to it, again, they abut DW Highway, but their access happens to be off of Crosswoods Path Boulevard, which my understanding is actually multiple different associations out there that all have different control and access rights and whatnot. So probably that.
okay. I would hesitate to vote it down just because I believe we'd be putting an excess burden on the applicants since they do have legal documentation that is really not, in my opinion, our purview. That's more of a legal jurisdiction.
We could postpone action.
Ms. Healy, please.
But I would have expected, in order to have a complete application, that the applicant would in fact have had that discussion as part of their preparation for coming to see us, knowing that it would probably come up.
I would only disagree with that in saying that A, they had the legal document, which is not really our jurisdiction, and B, that the abutters that are claiming to be abutters are not really abutters, I guess I would say. So I mean, I agree, but then we're coming back to the legal document that they do have rights to it. Anybody else?
They do have rights in that sense that they're the condominium association is the other party to this.
Correct.
On that other piece of road.
Yes.
And I would think one way would be to have a legal review and opinion to us on this issue. And we could postpone till January, whatever.
Robert, your thoughts on that? I don't know if it would be the town's legal department or if it would just be Fuss and O'Neill reviewing the documentation.
Yeah, interpret. I mean, it could be either one. We didn't send the copy of the easement language that we had to Fuss and O'Neill, but if the board has the specific question, I'd probably look to legal just to clarify it as a recorded document. It's probably the best way to do it.
Would that be something that could be done by, what is it, January 3rd? Is it 3rd is our next meeting?
Feasibly, I can't speak for the schedule of
Or whether the
legals,
applicant
but
has time.
or if
to
they,
come
yeah, if they're
correct.
available, but feasibly, it's a one document, so it's not that large a request.
If the applicant has any input on that, I understand your
You know,
dismay.
I defer to the will of the board. I can't be here on the 3rd, so it would need to be the 17th.
The 17th, okay.
It would be hard for me to address an issue that I didn't know about until 10 minutes ago, when this gentleman showed up. Pardon me?
Miss Healy, Miss Healy.
I've known about it. We have our rights.
There you go.
I didn't need to, what should I have done differently?
Yeah, maybe called them.
I understand there's been a interested party in this about this matter for some time now, since we made the application. I'm not sure who that is. Maybe he could have communicated that as well.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So, when you guys are doing your due diligence, right? I assume this easement is recorded as you said. So, you proposed the road being where it was because it's been someone, maybe the condo association when it was first put together had agreed upon this.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I would lean more with the applicant that, someone, maybe the condo association at the very beginning gave legal access many years ago. And
Well, it's not even the way it's being spelled out. It's not the condo association. It was when that tract of land was first laid out. The easement, the variance was given to the neighboring tract of land. It was then split up like we have done in other
yeah,
applications in town to like they did Greens Pond, like the shopping center in Phase A. Phase B was then the condominiums. Technically, it is the same tract of land, but it would be different, not different owners, but there would be different notifications,
yeah.
if you understand. So it is the same tract of land, but they would not be a butter, so they would not have got notifications if you're following to the T our towns.
Yeah, I'm not saying they should have, weighing on whether they should or should not have been. I'm just saying as a person that deals with easements all the time, if
Correct,
you,
no,
if you have an easement,
If you purchase a tract of land and
Yeah.
it has easements and variances with it, you would
It's-
expect to use those rather
Exactly.
easily. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Robert, looks like you have something to add.
Yeah, I guess it's just also important to reiterate that Harris Pond Drive is actually on the applicant's property. So technically, it's the plaza and the condo units that cross onto the applicant's
Correct,
property
and
to
that's where
access DW Highway.
And if I'm not wrong, that's where the variance comes from. They needed their private road to go over somebody else's property, therefore giving them access to that private road since it's on their property. Is similar to when we see shared driveways. I think we can
yeah,
right? If it's on my property, but you gotta get to yours.
This document was all, Mr. Chairman, was all tied into the Harris Pond development at the time.
Correct.
Yeah, it wasn't as if they were two virgin properties
Yes.
beforehand. And those owners got together. It was specific to Harris Pond and Pennachuck. Yeah, correct.
Do we feel more comfortable then? Still want to do a legal review? Okay.
Maureen, you look uneasy.
I do think a legal review would be good. Just to make sure, because language can be interpreted in all different ways, and I just feel like that, I feel like the residents there that have been living there hasn't had a fair shake at it, I guess. I also feel that the sidewalks and the landscaping should continue, should be done. I feel as if this board has, part of Merrimack has been looking to build this, and I feel like we continue to say no, and I feel like it is going to look really city-like and industrial-like at the south end of Merrimack over time, especially if somebody does purchase or they decide to purchase. I mean, I'm from Burlington, Mass. If anybody's ever gone through Burlington, Mass, they built buildings on swamps that were sinking. Every piece of Burlington has been built up, and I can see this happening here in Merrimack right now. So while right now there's buffers around it, I feel as if it may not be that way in 10 years or even 5 years. So that's how I feel.
I can understand the buffer situation because you do never know who's going to buy land around you and what they're going to build. I cannot speak to the DOT property. You never know who the state is going to sell to. Just with my experience with a commission that I am on in town, once a water company owns a piece of property, nobody else is going to own that piece of property. That's until the water is gone, that is the water company's property. Granted, that's just a rule of thumb because, well, that's their main site. Pennachuck's not going anywhere anytime soon. They're supplying more and more to us surrounding towns, but take that for what it's worth.
I just would like to kind of go back to what Barbara had said too, is that this is like the fourth or fifth one of these being built down in that area as well. So while each one is also coming up with maybe 1 to 2% traffic impact, but now we have 4 or 5 different ones bringing up that impact. So that's all I'm saying, is that, you know, we're trying to put these things into place, these parking lots into place, these sidewalks into place, and then I feel like we continue to waive them when, if we put it in now, it could save us down the road. That's how I feel. Thanks.
Thank you, Maureen.
I believe the traffic study does, he mentioned, look at other projects that we've approved in the area. Correct.
Apologies, am I allowed to respond to that?
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Oh, okay,
Please.
sure. Yes, Mr. Dano, thank you. We did account for the other developments which were known, and again, Mr. Price's office was kind enough to make us aware of other projects in the area. So each applicant is obviously responsible for addressing their own individual impacts, and you also have to account for what is known before you as well. Again, I stand by the fact that this is probably the most complete standalone traffic analysis that the board has seen for this southerly part of Daniel Webster Highway, probably since the Benning Court development. In my professional opinion, the traffic from this site can be accommodated on the existing roadway system without further mitigation. What may happen several years down the road, I can't testify to what other landowners may do, but at least as we sit here today, for this specific development, as well as what is known to have already been in the process, what this board has already seen before, I feel very confident professionally stating that the traffic from this development can be adequately accommodated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I think I have to agree with his statements regarding that. We have to look at this, its impact right now on what's there and, or what might knowingly be there. And so we have to take that into account. And I think that from the testimony we have, there's no major impact at all on traffic. So I couldn't not vote for traffic.
And when it comes to the sidewalks, I mean, I would like to make them make a sidewalk, but there's already one there on the other side of the street. So I agree, but I would not feel comfortable making somebody build a sidewalk next to another sidewalk. That's just me personally. I feel if there was an issue with the sidewalks, the first person we would hear from is Mr. Disco, knowing his affinity for sidewalks. But
You know, there's places we really, really need sidewalks.
correct.
And there's places where I don't know if we
Yeah.
need them. I don't know. If there is, I've never seen pedestrian traffic down there, the way I see it in the center of town, for instance. And,
And we did. I don't believe that pedestrian crossway was in existence before. Was that part of the Robert? Was that part of the last development down there?
It was part of Edgebrook.
That's what I thought. Okay, so we've acted on this part of town prior to give
Yeah.
access to that sidewalk.
yeah, sadly, it doesn't go.
This
to
just happens to
Nashua.
be one of the tracks flammed that fall, where there already is a sidewalk. May it be helpful or not, but once again, take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, there's no sidewalk in the Nashua side
Correct.
on either side, so
Well,
that's why I don't feel I can enforce the sidewalk in this
To go,
particular
yeah.
case.
board members, do I have further conversation or a motion? Just let me once again, because I know Bob would if he were here. If you do choose to vote it down, please be aware that you need to cite what it goes against. We are not in the purview of any kind of legal remedies that would be handled in the court. When it comes to how many certain types of buildings we currently have in town, that is not a jurisdiction of ours to handle either. Obviously, because we have many Mexican food restaurants in town and we have many apartments in town, and yet they're all busy and they're all held up. So, that's just not for us to decide. So, whatever the board decides, just please be aware that citations need to be made for the negative.
Yes, if you vote against.
Correct.
I'm going to try and find the motion. I know he's got one in here.
The motion, yes. So the motion does say to continue it. That was
Yeah.
prior to them receiving staff comments.
Yeah.
Correct me if
So
I'm wrong, Robert.
That is correct. I will say you could probably use the lot line adjustment motion and get to change that language to site plan, and the rest of what I need would be in there.
Okay, now all I gotta do is find the lot line adjustment. Yeah, I found two. All right, okay. And we've taken care of the waiver issues, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I would like to make a motion, that with the I find that the proposed conditions of approval, that this site plan meets all applicable regulatory requirements, and to grant a conditional final approval to the site plan, subject to the recommended conditions of approval presented in the staff memo of December 13th. And I'd like to add to those conditions that there be a legal review of the status, assuming that it's legal to tap into this owned by others road, if you will, this private road.
Which I'm sure, granted, I would like that to be in the memo as well, but I'm sure part of moving forward with anything is checking existing variances and easements. Correct, Robert?
Well, I think I wanted to add it to the motion.
No,
and
I
make it
agree.
part of
Just to
yeah,
get the verbiage
okay,
in there.
yeah.
I 100% agree.
Okay, so There you have it. There's a
Did you get all
motion.
that, Robert?
Yeah, so the board's requiring a legal review of the access document to ensure that access to Harris Pond Drive is legally permissible,
Right.
essentially.
Correct.
I also took a note from earlier during the discussion that the board would like a more clearly delineated access to the existing tower shown.
Yes.
So I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Disco, seconded by Mr. Dano. Do I hear further discussion? Questions, comments?
So, only about, the waivers. So,
So we only approved one waiver. He had written down two because he was not aware that he did not need a waiver for the sidewalks. It's mainly up to the board's preference at the time with a situation like this. The other waiver was simply the percentage of vegetation within his parking lot. Usually we were
10% to 4%.
correct. We would usually, like I said, as you would see, like say in a supermarket parking lot, breakups where you see the mulch beds, flowers, stuff like that. Somewhat to make it more pleasing, to not give a sea of pavement type of look. As I was saying personally myself, with this type of building, we do not really want to see it. No offense with however attractive you make it. It's an industrial building. So I would rather you put all the parking lot together and give me a ring of vegetation so I can't see it. I'm not looking for your parking lot to be attractive. I just don't want to be able to see your building from the road.
So, but there still could be 6% more vegetation.
If we did make them do that, they would have to break up that parking lot, take the vegetation away, because you would then have to see it from the street, because they would have to take away that little strip of where they have two sections of snow storage and break out that parking lot. Given that we've already
Granted the waiver.
granted the waiver, you're free to vote how you please, obviously, but the waiver has been granted.
Okay.
Is that it, Maureen?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion on the table. All in favor of passing this motion made by Mr. Dano?
Mr.
Mr. Disco, seconded by Mr. Dano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Were you? You approve? Okay, that is 4-1-0 with Maureen voting negative. Robert.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the attention.
Thank you.
I appreciate the questions, and happy holidays to everybody.
thank
Thank
Coming
you.
in.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is agenda item 9. That's S.J. Torres as the applicant and Orrin H. Connell Family Trust as the owner. This is continued review for consideration of a waiver of full site plan review to permit a variety of temporary event uses on site. The parcel is located at 454 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial, Aquifer Conservation, Elderly Housing, and Town Center Overlay District. That is tax map 5D-4, lot 54. That's case number Planning Board 2022-46. This item is continued from the December 6th Planning Board meeting. Robert, what do you have on us for this one?
Much like the items we heard earlier, this one has also requested a continuance to January 17th due to scheduling conflicts.
Thank you, Robert. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So
Mr.
moved
Chairman.
by Mr. Disco, seconded by Ms. Healy for the continuance. Any discussion? All in favor of continuance, say aye. Aye. All
Well, that was
opposed?
January 17th. Is that what we did that? Yeah.
Correct.
Thank
That's
you.
correct. Yeah. Do you still stand on that motion, Nelson? To the 17th, correct?
Yes, right.
And Ms.
Just
Healy,
wanted
your
to clarify.
second still stands?
Yeah.
All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Maureen, you were an aye? 5-0-0 to move that to the 17th of January. Next is agenda item number 10. That's Ronald Rosenfeld as the applicant and Garrett and Jillian Susi and Rossiniero Trust of 2014 as the owner. That's consideration of an amendment to a conditionally approved lot line adjustment seeking to remove condition of approval number 6E imposed by the planning board at its June 4th, 2021 meeting which requires the provision of easement documentation to allow an existing driveway encroachment onto abutting property to remain or removal of that encroachment. The parcels are located at 12 and 14 Dodier Court in the R1 Residential by Soils and Aquifer Conservation Districts. That's tax map 7C, lots 47-1 and 47-2, case number Planning Board 2021-13. Robert.
So due to an unfortunate legal issue, with legal notice issue, this item is not going to be heard. The board should take no action and just move on.
There you go. Easy enough.
What was the issue?
No motion, take
That's
nothing.
not even a motion. Not
Nope.
even. We're just gonna.
There's a legal notice problem, so we have to renotice for January 3rd.
There you go.
God,
All right.
That one easy. Yeah.
Agenda item number 11 is discussion of possible action regarding other items of concern. Does anybody have anything for us tonight? Maureen, please.
And maybe when more of the board is here as well. But I do feel like, and I'm going to do the research myself, that we have been asking for sidewalks, we've been asking for more vegetation and parking lots, but I feel as if every single meeting I've been to, we've been waiving them. And I feel that the bigger that we get, the more further we're going to be away from really what we've asked for. So that is just my thoughts. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that, but at least one or more applicants every single meeting, we're waiving that. So any thoughts?
I do know, I'll allow Nelson to talk more about the sidewalks, but at least because, I mean, I said it 4 times tonight because I feel like I hear Bob say it at least a dozen times every meeting, sea of pavement, sea of pavement, sea of pavement. We've granted a lot of parking lot waivers, which is to say we've allowed people to put in less parking spaces than they technically need, judging by our rules and regulations, and that's exactly for that reason. We don't want to see parking lots like the old Shaw's Plaza, which has now been changed, thankfully, with the 360 being put in. Sometimes you can't avoid it, like we had today, but if you feel that we are allowing too many seas of pavement, continue to voice it, if that's what you feel. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I feel like we've definitely started to attack that, given the larger projects in town. Nelson, if you want to.
Yeah, well, we're talking about the parking lot. The
Correct, or
parking
sidewalk,
situation.
either way, correct.
I can talk about sidewalks
Yeah,
separately. With the parking, I think that regulation was recently brought in by Tim, and they brought it from Londonderry. And I think it's geared more toward large developments where there's large parking lots. And you have this sea of asphalt, and they wanted to break it up. And we were applying it on fairly small parking lots, and then it gets in the way because you put an island in
It
the
then makes the parking lot larger than it needed to be
yeah,
in the first
and
place.
it's really kind of, I think there's a flaw in that regulation, or we'd ought to rewrite that in a way that once you're under a certain size, that doesn't apply anymore, because we are given a lot of waivers on those, and they make sense when the people come and tell you what the issue is.
Well, at a certain point, like you're saying, it will make the parking lot, the impervious material, larger
Well, yeah,
at a certain spot.
it'll take up more area
Correct.
anyway, more real estate, because you've got these little islands of trees that it'd be nice to have them if they were really grown trees. They're all little skinny
Little
trees now,
saplings, and they just kind of
some of
stay
them
there.
don't live too well in parking lots. So that's my feeling about it. I think we ought to address it through a change in that regulation.
I agree.
Well, that's what I think I'm going to do, is really research, the regulations and kind of look at the history of where it's been and what it means. Because, like I said, I grew up in Burlington. When I was young, there was no Burlington Mall there. When I left there in 1991, there was not a lot of traffic there. and now it is, you just can't even go anywhere. And I really feel that Merrimack is starting to turn into this, and even that little property over there, somebody's gonna have their eye on it and put in a number that's going to make it move, even if it is the state's. So, I just feel like if we're requiring this, why not have it done now, so that maybe if there's 10 new businesses that go down and everybody has a part of the sidewalk or whatever it may be, that now it's not one person's responsibility, it's been made by everybody. So, and honestly, I will say, Nelson, I actually see more pedestrian presence down at the southern end than I do downtown, because there's a lot of people up there that walk and run and bike from like all of those companies over there. So I actually do see a lot more pedestrian over there, adults, you know.
Yes. Fortunately, there is a sidewalk over most of that, because the state put that in, and they just did it without asking us. And we've said
You're like,
nothing but
"Yeah."
thank you ever since. So, you know, and the part of sidewalk that, well, I was put in charge of this committee, or I somehow wound up being in charge of this committee called the Town Center Committee. And our mission was to get sidewalks in the center part of town. And it's been very difficult because we don't have much new development going on. And we have to do it on our own nickel to make it happen. And everybody looks at nickels and says they add up to dollars. And so that's where I come from, is that the important thing is to get this center of the town worked. And if we could work that strip between here and 360, that would be marvelous. You know, that's priorities. And priorities include crossing the Babusick Brook. That's a terribly dangerous place right now. Still is. And hopefully that'll get taken care of by the state. We're counting on that. And so, what was the question? I forgot.
I'm just thinking that, you know, moving forward, if we're having people come in and build new companies, and there's a piece of land in front of them, and you can build a sidewalk, I think that's going to help whatever part of the
I
town.
think we're
it's in.
trying to do that.
Yeah.
You won't find me not voting for sidewalks on anything on Route 3 between Greeley Street and Reed's Ferry Village. But that's ultimately what it's got to be, so that people can safely walk that way.
I know there are certain parts of town where it was just either not feasible or it's just very difficult, because I remember we came up against that near exit 11 to get people from where those apartments are across the street to where the Burger King was, and there's just no, to try to tie into all those lights, that's already a disaster.
Yes, that was, yeah.
Correct. There was just no, unless we wanted to make them build a sky bridge for that little tiny little crossing, there was just no way to do it.
That was a tough one. Yeah, we had to let that one go.
And I know that's happened a few times, so.
Once in a while, it gets painted in a corner.
Yeah.
Painted out of the corner.
Ms. Healy, please.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Maureen, because even for those developments that are going on and they're out in the maybe one of the corners of the town, someone's going to be the first person to build a sidewalk. And after that, you know what I mean? Someone's going to be first. So I agree with you, Maureen. In many cases, we could have probably said, let's put a sidewalk in, it's a development. I would like to, I lost my note, I'm sorry. I would like to get a copy of that traffic study. It's a full traffic study, right, that they did for the southern part of the town along the DW.
For that project we just,
Yeah.
okay.
I would, even electronic, Bob, it doesn't need to be copied, but it's so rare that we get a full one. I'd like,
Especially for that part of.
yeah, and to have that kind of, it's sitting in the back of our head, I think it'd be very useful.
Put me on distribution, Bob. I like to.
I know you like traffic studies.
I love them.
Also, do we have a timeline? Because I know that the town plan is supposed to be coming up, where we actually look at all of the different zoning, and because we do need some updates to our zoning. No more of the, I think it's does not do anyone any favors to have mixed residential and industrial. We've seen in multiple places in town where that can get you in trouble. And like, you know, who wants to live across the street from a warehouse or some other manufacturing business unless you really have to. So I think we're getting big enough now that we need to look at that and fix the zoning where we can so that we don't run into these kinds of problems, if you will.
Well, the advantage for that is
I agree with all of that.
the way this town's set up, the planning board can undertake an initiative to do that at any time of the year. We're not cornered into just the end part of the year for the beginning of the year voting and getting it onto a March ballot.
Good.
Town council's got the responsibility to approve the zoning here, so planning
So we
board
can
take
do it
that
at
up
any
at any
time
time.
without it going to a ballot item.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Healy. Any further discussion? Any other items of concern?
Not.
No? Okay. Move on to agenda item number 12, which is approval of the minutes from the December 6th meeting. Can entertain a motion
I have a suggestion.
or some corrections. Absolutely, Mr. Ditko.
In Page 8, line 16. That sentence didn't get finished the right way, I think. It says, at the applicant's request, the board voted 7-0-0 to continue both the application's public hearing to January 3rd at 6:30 in the maximum with no further notice to abutters. Now, the issue was, it says to continue both the applications.
The word acceptance is missing.
Say again, please, I'm sorry.
The word acceptance is missing. It should be both the application's acceptance and public hearing.
Oh, yeah, that would fit it, that would make it, yeah. Other than that, I'll make a motion to, aside from that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December the 6th.
Motion made by Mr. Disco, seconded by Ms. Healy. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor of approval of the minutes with the edits given by Mr. Disco, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? Abstaining, Robert. That is 2. That is 3-0-2. In favor of passage of the minutes. Brings us to agenda item number 13, adjournment. Made by Ms. Tracy, seconded by Ms. Healy. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? That's 5-0-0 to adjourn. Thank you very much, members. Bob, Colleen, please remember to turn off your microphones.